Okay, very good afternoon to all who have joined us today. I am S. Prasanna Kumar, a member of Academic and Research Committee team, IMA MSN Karnataka. We welcome you all to this special webinar, The Fundamentals of US Residency in collaboration with DAMS Delhi. We at IMA MSN Karnataka take great pride in informing you that we have actively conducted numerous events ranging from academic related webinar to awareness camps. With the threat of COVID-19 over the past 1 year, we have managed to conduct all events online successfully under the guidance of our Dr. Joshi R, chairperson of IMMSN Karnataka, Mithun, Mithun M, state convener, Begana state coordinator, and Fazin Alfa, the head of academic and research committee. We have glad to inform you that all in just 3 months we are really gratifying it. For those unable, IMMSN stands for Indian Medical Association, Medical Student Network, a medical association for the medicos, by the medicos, and of the medicos. Karnataka, being the state with most number of medical colleges and students, has unfortunately never had a significant contribution at the national level over the years. Hence, we at the IMMSN Karnataka are here to change that. USMLE. Coming to USMLE, it is a prestigious residency program with millions of aspirants all across the globe. Often students preparing for it to face problems along with these preparation days as they are not aware of the examination procedure and how to go over preparation for it. To crack the examination, one needs to have the right to strategy to success. Now here comes Dr. Mala Srinivasan ma'am, the USMLE expert and DAMS Delhi director who brings about 20 years of experience in teaching, guiding and counseling the students. She has successfully taught and sent thousands of students to USA and has counseled a number of students over the years. Ma'am played a vital role in bringing in Kaplan USP education to India. This afternoon, we are grateful to have here ma'am joining us to advise, enlighten and inspire us. So without any further ado, let us all welcome Dr. Mala Srinivasan ma'am. Over to you ma'am.
So thank you very much, Prasanna, for this wonderful introduction. And at the outset, I would like to also congratulate you and your team for, I think, being very proactive in trying to bring, a lot of information to the students all across India, especially in your Karnataka section. I think you have been, in correspondence with me over a month, even when I was traveling. You were really pushing this whole thing. So I think this is the kind of push we need within students, to make sure that we bring about a change in the way Indian students are represented all over the globe. So congratulations. And I think IMA itself is a very wonderful organization which helps students for the same. So I will advocate that as well. Okay, so I also would not want to waste a lot of time because I know a lot of students here are waiting to, know about USMLE and so many things that I can, help you with this. So I'm just going to keep talking about a few things. There are more students who are going to be joining me. So I think whoever is available right now, I'm going to quickly go over most of the important aspects of USMLE. To start with, you need to know what USMLE is all about. The good part of USMLE is something which people are not very aware of. Most of the times they see a lot of things which are negative in India. There are a lot of people, there are so many open networks and forums which are available, and sometimes students read wrong information. And whenever I talk to students, 8 out of 10 people are telling me something wrong they heard about USMLE, and I just want to make sure that I put across all the right information for you. I want you all to know what USMLE is all about. Okay, so first of all, I wanted to start with this significant message that was put across on ECFMG website. ECFMG is Educational Commission for Foreign Medical Graduates. That is where you go and make all your applications. Okay, so in that website, the first thing that was written is that international medical graduates, they play a very important role in the supervised medical care in the United States, and they are helping grow the nation's healthcare system, and especially during the pandemic. Okay? So it's really important that you should know that you are very welcome and you are required. There are more than 23.6% of total active US physicians who are from the international system. And out of that, the 30% of the physicians who are in that category of international students are definitely Indians. So you should be very happy and proud that from all over the globe, the number of doctors that are actually practicing physicians and doing extremely well in the US, 30% of that comes from the Indian subcontinent. And that is really something heartening for us. Right now, the first question that everyone, whenever they meet me and they are not sure about what they want to do, they ask that why should we go to USA? So like I said, I'm not the person who can make the decision for you, or I should not be the one who should tilt you in favor of something which you may or may not want to do. But my job is to give you the right information. So I can only tell you why USA, because there are a few good points in USA. One is the quality of training, the environment is really good. It's a very predictable career path that you will have once you start your US residency. After you complete the training, there is a lot of options that are pretty predictable. And like I said, in the last 20 to 25 years that I've been guiding, I haven't seen much change in the US medical system or even taking in international students. So I think that when it is so predictable, it makes life very easy for you. You are not having a lot of suspense. They ask you 10 things that you should have on your CV when you apply. If you have those things, they definitely call you for interview. If you do well in the interview, you most certainly will match. This is quite predictable. And also later on, once you match, there is a lot of predictability in how your career can progress. And it, of course, depends on how well you do, even as a resident. But most of the time, there is a lot of opportunities even beyond your residency. There are a lot of fellowships and board certification options which allow you to make a lot of money and practice all around the globe. Lucrative, everyone knows that they pay really well, and because of the pay it gives you flexible timings as well, so you have work life balance, so many things that are positive about the US health system, and the way you as a doctor can make a difference not only to that system but also to how you live your life. I think that part US definitely takes care of very well. Also, once you finish your residency over there, it is almost certain that you can actually migrate or immigrate to the US, because most people, I know, they really don't, nobody really wants to come back, or if they do come back, they come back because they really want to, or they have some thing to do at home. All right. Now, what are the advantages of the US residency? The same thing that I was just talking about: great working conditions, state-of-art facilities, fellowship opportunities, good money. 50,000 is the minimum pay that you will be getting per annum, 50,000 US dollars per annum, which works out to be about $4,000 per month, net of taxes. And post residencies, there are students who can earn as much as even, $20,000. Now let's start with the process of USMLE. The first things first is who is eligible to get into USMLE. For being eligible to give your USMLE exam, you need to be an international medical graduate whose school is recognized and their name is on the World Directory of Medical Schools. Okay, so the email ID for that is wdoms.org. You need to go to WDOMS, which means World Directory of Medical Schools. Once you go there, type in your school name or type in the name of the place that your school is situated in, and you will be able to see if your school is recognized or not. And just in case you don't find your school name there, the process of getting your school name there is not very difficult, and you need to send your email to medschoolreview@ecfmg.org, MEDSCHOOL review@ecfmg.org. This is a question that many students ask me, so I decided to put in this slide. I also need you all to know that from 2024, the minute it is, after 2023, ECFMG has announced that from 2024 onwards, every student who will apply for this exam needs to have their medical school accredited by the WFME program. So the accreditation by WFME is not very clear right now that exactly what is the pathway for the same, but it is going to be something that will be announced in phases, and hopefully from now until 2023 we will have a clarity on it. What we know for now is that from 2022 onwards they will indicate that which school is recognized and which school is not, and what are the requirements for accreditation of your medical school. And only after 2024 will those schools the students from those schools will only be allowed to take the exam whose school is in the WFME. So unless and until your school is in WFME, you will not be allowed to take this exam. All right. So this is a very important thing. I will be taking questions at the end of this session. I just want you all to know that these are the important changes or transitions that are taking place in USMLE. And once you know about these changes, you can definitely get back to me. I will be helping you with all your process of applications, whether it is now or even after 2024. So there's nothing to worry, nothing to panic. Many students are coming back to me and wondering that, ma'am, will we be ever able to give USMLE after 2024? So there is really no need to panic. There will be changes, and those changes also will be announced shortly. Maybe in the coming year, we will have more clarity on this, and I will be talking more about that. All right. So let's go with the most important thing that you need to know is what is the current residency matching process. Okay. So what do we need to do when we start our USMLE journey? What are the different stages that are involved before we get into a residency? So the stages involved are, you have to give your step 1 exam, step 2 exam. For the current match, it is OET. OET is an English language. Many people are confusing it with IELTS. This is not IELTS. This is OET. This exam is taken for the current match year, where it is an English language with a medical base that you will be giving an exam with. Step 1, Step 2 CK and OET will then give you an ECFMG certification if you have already an MBBS degree which is verified. So you need your MBBS degree, you need it to be verified by ECFMG, you need to give your 3 steps, Step 1, Step 2 CK and OET, after which you will get a certification called ECFMG certification, and finally you have to give your Step 3. These are the stages. After you give all these exams, you apply for your residency through a process called Electronic Residency Application Scheme, or ERAS. Okay. Once you apply for your residency, I will tell you which are the stages when you apply for what. They start calling you for interviews, and finally, after you clear your interviews, you match into a program and start your residency. Okay. So what are the different stages I just talked to you about? But when is what is done when? You need to know that September of every year, September month of every year, they start the applications for residency. And during that time, by 15th of September, you should have your Step 1 score, your Step 2 CK score, as well as your OET. Once you have all your scores ready, by 15th of September is your last date by which you should have all of this ready. Between September and December, they start the interviewing process. After that, during this time, you will be interviewing. In the past, interviews used to be where the student had to travel. So they had to go to the US. They should have a base in the US, and then they needed enough money to also travel. Due to the pandemic now, most of the residency interviews are conducted online, and we think that this may be a change that will happen, that in future too, you can sit in India and you can have your residency interview sitting at your home. First of all, it saves you a lot of trouble to travel to the US. A lot of money is also saved, because when you need to travel to the US, you also spend a lot of money to stay. Many of you don't have relatives or friends over there where you can actually stay, and so a good part of that is taken care of. Okay. From February 22nd is when they declare, both of you, like the interview people who have interviewed will send their, that where they have, they would like to match. They give the list of programs that they have done really well, and where they give an order, rank order list is given. Similarly, the programs who have interviewed you will also give a list, and then these lists are matched, and that's why it is called a match, because once on March 16th, they match these two lists, and then they declare where you have got your residency. Usually around 1st of July is when you start your residency program. It can also be a week or 2 weeks before that. All right. Now, for an Indian program, now all this, whatever I have said, is general for everyone. Even an American graduate has to do all the steps of USMLE before getting into a US residency. So till now, whatever I have told was mainly a general idea that what all you need to do. But for an Indian, many students say, ma'am, I'm in the first year, what I should do. I'm in the second year, what I should do. I'm in third year. So people start from very early. There are people even before getting into MBBS are very clear, we want to do USMLE. So how do we start our journey, and what do we need to do right from first year until we send the application for USMLE? So suppose you are in the first year, what are the different things that you can do? First of all, USMLE exam, especially the Step 1 exam, is taken in the third year. It can be taken as early as your third year. The subjects for the USMLE Step 1 exam are your first and second year subjects. A good inclination of all the subjects are basically on the second year, which is pathology, pharmacology, microbiology. These are the three top subjects which are second year subjects. So most of what you will be learning in your second year is what is going to be helpful for your USMLE Step 1 exam. So my personal opinion is to start your USMLE preparation as early as first MBBS. May be a little bit early for you, and people tend to get tired, tend to get a little flustered because they don't understand most of the subjects. Anatomy, physiology, biochemistry are the only three subjects you do in your first year. You have a very short period in your first MBBS. So I think that you should do well in your academics, do well in these three subjects. You can also solve questions for these three subjects in the USMLE pattern. We will tell you how you can do that. But apart from this, you try to align yourself to make your CV strong, like you join extracurricular activities, do some voluntary activities, and try to do well in your college, in your medical school, because I'm going to talk about changes in USMLE, which are going to happen very shortly. With these changes, they are going to be more interested in what you did in the 5 years in your medical school. So if you don't have a very good CV in your medical school, unless and until you have a very good CV in the US, which is very difficult to create because you have only a year's time, 1 year or maybe even less than that, you have internship year. After that, you go and try to do rotations or electives in the US. So you have very little time to improve your CV after you graduate. So if you are in the first year and interested in USMLE, I usually tell students start working on your CV from the very first day and look for opportunities to improve your CV. Okay. The second MBBS students can start their step 1 prep as early as whenever they have done with their step 1 first year exam. They can immediately start your USMLE step 1 preparation in the early part of your second year. Continue with your volunteer activities, all your academics in medical school. Look for research opportunities within your college or outside. Talk to professors who are doing research work, or they're interested in some kind of publications. You can talk to all the people who are around you who are into research opportunities and try to align yourself with them, because that will definitely help you. So these are the things you can do if you are a second MBBS student. Once you have decided to start USMLE in your third year, you have to try to give your step 1 exam somewhere in your third year. If you have started in second year, well and good. But if not, you can even start in early part of your third year and give the exam somewhere by the end of your third year. If the students in India will also need to start your next preparation, because after fourth year, in the final year, you will have to give your next part 1 as well. So after you give your USMLE step 1, you're free to then pursue your next. And when you start your internship, you can then do the step 2 CK, electives, and your next part 2. Everything can be done after that. So basically for third year and internship, I say that give your step 1, start your next preparation in your internship, finish your step 2 CK, as well as do some rotations during your internship. In your final year, of course, third MBBS and final year, this is what you need to do. Keep preparing for the USMLE part, part 2, as well as your next. Finally, on 15th of September, you send your application for your residency. In that, for the current year, like I said, step 1, step 2 CK, OET, letters of recommendations from US, as well as your MBBS degree. These are the most important criteria for your applications. All right. Now, what is a CV? Every student asks me this question. I'm trying to put all the mostly asked questions right now, so that if you have more questions regarding it, you can ask me at the end of my presentation. What is a CV and how do you change your CV? So first of all, a CV should never be stagnant. Like, I have done one thing, so for the rest of my life, that is what I'm going to talk about. That is called a stagnant CV. You cannot have a stagnant CV. You have to evolve your CV. When you say evolving, you may have different aspects in your character. You may be academically very strong, but you may be a debater. You may be a good dancer. You may be a swimmer. So if you have different aspects to your character, please make sure that your CV reflects that, because whenever they interview you, they would like to see all aspects of your character, not just the fact that you're academically very strong, because being academically strong, you have already proven by taking the steps, by making sure you have cleared without attempts, or getting very high scores in your step 2 CK. All of this can already prove to them that you're academically very strong. But what else they need to know? They need to know, are you compassionate? Are you a good doctor? Have you planned your career to US well in advance, so that it shows that your CV has evolved right from first year until your final year. You have done all that it takes to make sure your CV looks very sharp whenever you're sending your applications. Okay. If you're an old graduate, that also will do. Many students come and tell me, ma'am, when I hear your presentations, I come to think that only youngsters or people who start early are eligible for it, and we who are already graduated, we are not eligible for it. So let me tell you, definitely not. That is not true. If you are an old graduate, whatever you have done in between your graduation and your application, if there is more than 5 years gap, they don't prefer that. Most programs don't prefer more than 5 years gap. But if you're going to prove to them that in that 5 years gap, you have developed a lot of skills, you have done a lot of things that will make you a very good resident doctor or a very good doctor in the US, then they will still consider your application. So even if you're an old graduate, make sure that you're justifying why you want to go at this stage, why you're making a change in your career. And in that justification, also add a lot of good points in your CV that makes you look really good for them. Be very, very positive in this whole journey, because I know I've been an agony aunt for many students throughout this journey. It is okay to be unsure. It is okay to fall down, but all you need to be ready to get up and run again. And that comes with a lot of positivity inside you. If you feel at any stage that I'm not going to be able to do it, you will not be able to do it. Nobody in this world, even a program director, even if they are your parents, even then they will not be able to get you into residency if you yourself are not pro it, or you're not positive towards your journey. So make sure that the positivity comes up. And I really try in all my lectures that I keep giving a lot of positive information, because there is a lot of positive here. It is not all negative. There are negatives, but we cannot focus on them right now, because out of 100 students, 60 to 65 students go every year to the US from India, and you could be one of them. So why should you be negative and look at those 35% of people who haven't gone? And when they don't go because of a reason. It is not because the US system has suddenly arbitrarily decided that we don't want these 35 people, but it is only because they have done something in the CV which has not aligned themselves or made sure that they get into a good interview. And finally, I would like to end with saying that networking, please underline these words. I have used it 3 times here. Network, network, network. If you know people in India, you know people outside India, you know anyone who can help you with this journey, please go and, go and make your make that network done. And forums like this, forums like IMA, really help you network with people. So make sure that you are in these kind of forums, you're associated with these kind of forums, so that you have a good networking with people. Again, the tips: educate yourself, start very early. The earlier you start, the better it is. Even if you are a graduate, even then starting, instead of being worried that whether I can do it or not and spending another year worrying, it is better you start whenever you decide you want to do USMLE. That day you should hit the road running. Okay. Get US clinical experience. There's nothing better than going to the US and working in the US. You learn bedside manners, you learn how to talk, you learn how to dress, you learn how to be a doctor in the United States. What you do in India is completely different from what you do in the US. So if you want to go to the US, you better start learning what is required of you to get there. All right. So and of course, if you can, whenever you apply, make sure that you're researching the programs well. Researching gives you a lot of headway, and it also helps you filter out things that you're unnecessarily wasting your time on. So researching of programs is very important. I usually don't like to talk about red flags, but it is important for you to know about the red flags in this whole process, because sometimes it so happens that you blindly go into something and then you realize I shouldn't have done this, because this could come in my way. So you need to know a low score is a red flag. Attempts are red flags, because many times when they have to filter applicants, they only filter based on their scores and attempts. So the programs get, out of 100 that they need to interview, they get 1,200 applicants. So how will they filter you? How will they remove you? They see if you're an attempt person, they remove you. If you're an old graduate, they remove you. If you have gaps in your CV, they can take you out. If you don't have US clinical experience, so these are all the red flags. Make sure that you don't have those red flags. Having said all of that, in case you do have those red flags, there is always a way to make that not look so good by doing something even better. So there's always a way how you can overcome the red flags. But if you can totally avoid having those red flags, that will make your life a lot easier. Very importantly, clinical rotations in the US. It's important for you to know that what are the different kinds of clinical experiences in the US. The most important of all is called the electives, which is hands-on. So as a student, somewhere in your third or fourth year, you can apply for rotations, and only in your clinical internship year, you can travel to the US and work and do hands-on clinical experience. Now, in the pandemic, in the last 2 years, there was a lot of students who couldn't travel to the US clinical experience were completely not possible. And hence people were doing something called online rotations, which was completely acceptable. But now US is opening as of September, October. Again, they have started accepting students, and those who have a visa can travel. For those who don't have a visa right now, will have to wait until November when the embassy opens, and then they can again go to the US and start doing their rotations. With an internship and within getting your degree, you can do an elective. If you are already a graduate, you can do something called observership, externships, and research experience. Observerships is directly working under a doctor where you cannot get to touch the patient, but you can shadow the doctor and do everything that a student does except for touching the patient. Externships, you work under any private practitioners, work under anybody who even has, admissions in larger hospitals, and you can work. There are many private organizations which help you with externships. We ourselves have associations with some externship based organizations, and we can help you on how you can go for an externship in case you are already a graduate. And finally, research experience. Again, according to me, research is not the most important thing for every student. If you have great scores, if you have a good clinical experience, most of the colleges are looking for just these two. Your fresh graduation, that is very important. But in case you don't have that, then research can also help you. And research is very important for very good, research heavy organizations which are looking for students who can then come and take on with their research projects. So research is also important, but not as important that everybody 100 out of 100 should do research, otherwise you won't get into a residency. So when you apply for an elective, TOEFL is required by some of the organizations. You need immunization records, you need your titles, you need letters of recommendation from a clinical faculty in your medical school. If you're applying for surgical, then you should have it from a surgical faculty. If you're applying for medicine, pediatrics, or psyche, taking it from the same faculty will definitely help you more. You need to write a statement of purpose. What is a statement of purpose? It is something about yourself. It is like an autobiography, but very short, which gives them an idea about what kind of a person you are, what are your likes and dislikes, what have you been doing in your journey so far, and what are your projections for, say, 5 years from now. What do you think of yourself maybe 5 years from now? Health insurance is very important for any American, elective. Some of them offer their own health insurance, but many of them, you can take it from any of the health insurance company providers in India as well. Then you need to apply for a B1, B2, which is a travel visa. You can then, you need at least 5 to 6 weeks of prior planning for applying for a visa, sometimes even more because visa dates are difficult to get. And finally, a letter from your dean, which is, the certificate or the application from elective application, which is downloaded from the website and signed by your dean. This is mandatory for elective. Now, recent changes. I'm going to quickly go over just what is happening recently, which has changed the whole face of USMLE. USMLE Step 1 from next year, January 26th, becomes a pass and fail exam. So what does it mean for an IMG? There was a lot of uproar that, it has become pass and fail. And now what happens? The CS examination has been removed. Two big changes that happened during the pandemic was, one, the CS has been completely removed. So the third step, which was clinical skills, which made you travel to the US and take a clinical exam, has been abolished forever. In place of that, OET has come in, which is again temporary. Apparently next year they may make some changes and give some other exam, which may be the third exam you need to take. We don't have clarity on that. But what we know is USMLE Step 1 will become a pass and fail exam. If it becomes a pass and fail exam, then what will happen? What is going to happen is there's going to be a lot of emphasis on holistic application. What is holistic application? the program directors, a lot of work has increased for them. They will have to see your application in total. They cannot just ignore you based on your score. They will have to see whether you are a fresh graduate, whether you have US rotations, whether you have good letters of recommendation. Number of letters of recommendation is not as important as the quality of the letter of recommendation. Whoever has written for you should have written very good things about you and told things about your personality, making it look like they have worked with you and they highly recommend you. So quality of letters of recommendation, at least 3 letters are important. Due to the pandemic, in fact, they are okay with taking letters from your home country as well. Okay, so in this new scenario, step 1 is not going to count as much. So if giving the exam before December and making a scramble for that is really not something I would advise personally. Secondly, step 2 CK will be a very important scoring, because that is probably going to be the only score that will allow them to filter your application. So do really well on your CK. Timely applications. If you start your application, 15 September is when they download and start looking at your applications. That is the day you should have a complete application. I always believe that a complete application is more important than an early application, but having both of them, a complete and early application, is going to increase your chances of being called for interviews. Try not to have gap in your CV. You may be an old graduate, but you shouldn't have sat at home between your MBBS and application to USMLE. You should have done something in the CV which reflects your what you are interested in and what you think you can do and how good you are as a resident in that particular specialty that you're applying. So don't keep gaps in your CV. Step 3 is an exam. If you give, it certainly will increase your chances of getting more interview calls. US clinical experience, again, I'm emphasizing with step 1 out of your way, US clinical experience will be the single most important thing that you should try to do. And of course, if you cannot do that, cannot travel to the US, at least try to get home country residency experience. Okay, so if you are a PG from India, or if you can work in any of the big hospitals or good hospitals where you can get some kind of a help or some CV from that particular hospital, that will also help you. Okay, so your duration of graduation less than 5 years, US clinical experience, letters of recommendation, particularly from the US, timely USMLE certification, and what you did between your first year that you have finished your MBBS until you went into USMLE, how you have molded your CV will really count a lot. Okay, now a few things about US residency. This is only to interest you people and let you know. Many people ask me these questions, that what is the length of a USMLE, a US residency training. So I have put this chart here which says most of the trainings like family practice, internal medicine, pediatrics, OBGYN, patho. Till pediatrics, internal medicine, family practice, they are all 3-year residencies. Beyond that, like OBGYN, pathology, psyche, general surgery could be anywhere between 4 and 5 years. And many times for certain programs, you need to do a transitional year, a preliminary year before you get into a categorical program. So there are many types of programs. I think that today is not the day that I can discuss about the programs, but to give you a length of training, usually between 3 to 4 years, and some of the surgical programs are up to 5, and something like plastic surgery is even up to 6 years. All right. So which are the IMG friendly states: Texas, Florida, Michigan, New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, California. In that order, the number of IMGs that have matched is put in brackets next to it. So in 2021, this was the very high, the states that took international medical students. Which are the specialties that really were ranked very high this year was like patho, radiation oncology, IM, of course, internal medicine. Always the number of seats for internal medicine will be very, very high. So you can blindly apply for an internal medicine program and expect that if everything that you have done works for them, you will be called for an interview. Neurology is coming up as one of the IMG friendly specialty, medical genetics, pediatrics, even surgery for that matter. Lots of students have said surgery is not IMG friendly, which is not true. You will take probably a year or 2 years before you get into a categorical surgery program. So give yourself 5 years to graduate graduate once you are done with your application and everything. But it is not impossible. A lot of our students are doing it. I personally have just come back from the US and met so many students who are actually doing surgery, Indian students who are doing surgery in places like Yale and Harvard, and they managed it after 2 years of work experience in surgery in the US, which is easy to get by if you already have applied for surgical specialty. So surgery is possible. I hear even after all my talks, I see a lot of people commenting below the talks that surgery is impossible and I don't think we can get surgery. So please get that out of your system. It takes longer. You have to work on your CV, but nothing is impossible. Okay. This year, I want to quickly say that the number of IMGs that participated went really high. Last year, 12,000 students participated from international quota. This year, there were 13,000 applicants and 56.7% of that match. That means the number of IMGs who got into a residency is about 7,500. That is that many number of students have got into a residency this time. And I think it is very important for you to know that last year, only 7,300 students had matched, but this year, 7,500 international students had matched. So every year that number only increases, and you can see all my videos. I have been putting up videos last 4 to 5 years now, and every year I say the same thing, that the match rate for international students is just going up. I really wanted to show you this slide only to tell you about that. I would like to put in a quick word about what DAMS does. We at Delhi Academy of Medical Sciences, we have a program which is online. This is available 3 days a week, 6 to 10 p.m. on your app called eMedicos app. New batches have started on 2nd August, but people can join in at any time, and we keep having these lectures. So you people, it's a 24-week schedule. In 24 weeks, you will complete all the study pattern. You can take down the notes from the teachers. As far as the students, we recently had a 264. I'm probably going to interview him in a day or two where he can tell you about how he studied our notes and how it helped him manage and score as high as 264. And in case you have any kind of questions, you can also ask that person. But what I would like to tell you is 24-week schedule. We also have a 48-week schedule for students who are in the second year. So you start as early as your first month of your second year. Early third year, you can give your step 1 examination. Okay. Anything you need to know about our courses or how I can help you with your journey, please email me at usmle@damsdelhi.com. Okay. Now I would end my presentation here, and if Prasanna, if you're around, please let me know if there are questions from students, because we have about 20 minutes where we can talk about anything that I may have missed out in my presentation. So Prasanna, if you're there, please unmute yourself and let me know if you have those questions ready. We will be willing to take any questions from all of you so that, we can clear the doubt. So Prasanna, is there any question that you want me to?
Yes, ma'am, we have a couple of questions here. Ma'am, what type of visa do you apply for going to USA as a medical?
Right. So the US visa that you can apply as a medical student, whenever you are a medical student and you need to go for your rotations to the the US visa that you need to apply for is a B1, B2 visa. I have addressed that in my one of the slides today, that you need a B1, B2 visa. For a B1, B2 visa, what happens is that you will need to apply to the embassy, take a date, go and give an interview, and take a travel visa. Okay, so it is for it is not for a business purpose, but it is a travel visa which is called B1 and B2 visa. How you apply, what you apply. We also have our in-house visa counselor. He will be giving all the information, all the paperwork. I can recommend you who is the best person who can help you with all your visa applications. And once you have that in your hand, you need at least 6 to 7 weeks of, prior to you want to travel to the US. You should probably download the application form, fill out the application form, take a date for your visa. It is about 10 to 12,000 rupees for the visa, the cost for the visa, and then go and give your interview. For your interview prep and also for all these formalities, like I mentioned to you, we already have our visa counselor. We will, I'll connect you to him and he will tell you exactly how you can take benefit out of it. So Prasanna, are you there? Are there more questions? I'm unable to see you. Probably your internet has, are you there, Prasanna? Can you ask me the next question? Anyone else? Okay, so let me just continue till I get Prasanna on the call. I think what you need to know apart from the visa is that, the visa application process, when you can travel to the US, usually traveling to the US should be done during your internship time. Whenever you travel during your internship, it is easier for the visa people to give you visa because they know you will be coming back and you will be completing your internship before you actually go back to US for your US residency. So it is very important that you apply for your rotations within your 4th year, and the visa before you travel, you should apply somewhere in your at least 6 to 8 weeks prior to travel. That means approximately 2 months before you travel. Okay. So Prasanna, are you there? Can you ask me the remaining questions? Yeah.
Yeah, ma'am. This is Shruti. I'll continue on behalf of Prasanna.
Okay.
So the next question is, can students in MCI permitted but not recognized colleges are they eligible for USMLE?
Yes, so MCI recognition has nothing to do with USMLE. Like I mentioned, World Directory of Medical Schools, WDOMS. In case you put in your college name, you are not able to get it, then you need to go to medschoolreview@usmle.com, send them your school name and find out the process by which you can get your school name there. We have had many students whose name was not like MCI recognized, and we have helped them do this. And even Delhi schools who are recently newly developed schools, who have not completed 5 batches. Many people think that because of that you won't have sponsor notes and you cannot take your exam. That is not true. Your college has to have inspections by these people, and they would have to certify it before they will allow you to give the exam. So you need to be on World Directory. If you're not on World Directory, you need to get in touch with medschoolreview@usmle.org, and once you get in touch with them, they will give you all the information on how you can go about it. You can always connect with me on usmle@damsdelhi.com, and I can send you the procedure by how you can get your school on the list.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, the next question is, how do we get USCE during MBBS?
You get USCE?
How do we get USCE during the MBBS course?
Okay, so yeah, that's a good question. Now, US clinical experience can be hands-on. If you are not done with your clinical postings of final year, you will not get hands-on rotation. So the hands-on part can only be done during your internship period. But you can do observerships in your 3rd year. You can do something called, like I have mentioned before in many of my presentations, Johns Hopkins has an opportunity where you can just go there and work on your research elective over there. There are multiple opportunities now available which you can do even online if you don't want to travel, to observe any process or any big physician over there to understand what is the kind of work they do. So if you are not a graduate, you can always do US clinical experience. If you're a student also, like say 3rd year, 4th year, you can do online rotations and you can get clinical experience. But most important clinical experience and the letter that you get from them would be in your final year when you go for your electives to the US.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, on this particular topic for USCE, we have one particular question. I'll read the question. How can I try to apply for USCE if the college has not registered VSLO and is in current times? Majority of the universities have restricted IMGs as visiting students till May of 2022. And I'm currently a final year student. So is there any other way I could apply for the same, ma'am?
Good question. And it's not true that VSLO cannot be done individually. You can apply for VSLO on an individual basis, even if your college, home college, is not a part of VSLO recognized colleges. One of my students recently has got into Yale. In fact, he's got into 2 rotations at Yale, but one of them he had to forego, because every college is allowed to give only one rotation now as per the new rules, So Yale is through VSLO, but this student was not from a VSLO recognized college, but he did it individually online. You can go there, register yourself on VSLO and apply directly. If you meet the requirements and if you do a proper application process, do it at the right time. Like I said, most of the colleges are open after March of next year. Okay, so if you're applying for as soon as September or October, they will not consider you. But it may be if you apply from beyond March, you may be getting a consideration. So you have to, this student that I'm talking about has started his application way back in January, February, or maybe March, So even then the pandemic was on, everything was closed. The minute they opened, he had all his applications ready and he sent it. So you have to be prepared. You have to know the timeline. You have to keep checking every week online and see when a college is open and immediately send applications. Sometimes they get filled up, but then after a week or 10 days, they realize that some more slots are open and they open up slots. So you have to be very proactive for this. And I think if you are a part of our my coaching, you can be in touch with me and I can definitely help you with this whole process. But I think being proactive is the word here, and everything can be done individually. Even if your college is not on VSLO, you can apply on your own.
Next one. How to publish research papers and how many publications are generally filled by a participant?
Okay, so again, as far as research is concerned, again, I'm saying that there are certain programs which are expecting you to be very good with the research, your publications and everything. Now, there are two aspects of research. One, you yourself are very interested in research. There are people who start their residency in their mind, they want to do research also. Many students come to me and say, ma'am, my bent of mind is more research than clinical. So, what kind of work can I do? So sometimes those kind of people should start as early as possible. Look for all research opportunities within your jurisdiction, within your college, any of your teachers who are into publications or, who are doing some kind of research work. Try to help them in whatever way you can, like data gathering, doing computer-based work, or connecting them, or making posters for them, or doing whatever you can, even in your own way. That should be good enough for you. Meting out publications in your first and second year is not expected of you. And even if you do it, it won't be possible for you along with your curriculum, giving your USMLE, trying to give a lot of publications. I have always maintained that whatever you do in India, the thing that you do in the US will have much more value for the American application, because they identify with the names, with the work that you have done. And obviously the letter of recommendation you get from a research you do in the US will have far more value than anything that you do in India. That doesn't mean you should not do anything in India. If you can, please do it, because that will always look good on your CV. But more importantly, for people who are willing to do research, should be ready to take off a year before your application goes, because research cannot be done in 1 month and 2 months. You can do clinical rotations 2 or 3 months, but research has to take at least 6 to 8 months or a year before you get some idea of what research is all about and what work is done in the field that you're applying to. So if you're willing to take that extra year off, one, because you're interested in research, two, because you're applying to colleges which are research heavy and you are very, very aligned to those kind of colleges and you want to go only to those colleges which have a lot of research work, and three, your subject demands research, like neurology, psychiatry, or surgery, and there are some branches like that which also have a lot of research going on, especially neurology. They really look forward to people who have some research experience, because there is so much research work that goes on in these kind of topics. So think of the subject, think of the place that you want to apply to, and think of doing research in the US rather than in India. Okay.
Next is, what is the validity of each score of STEP score?
Yes, so as of next year, your step 1 score will not be used as a filter. Till now, even for this current year, your step 1 is going to be used as a filter. Filter means if a college has 300 applicants and they want only 100 applicants, anyone below 240, they will not take. So they can just filter your applicants and they will not even see whatever else you have done, because your step 1 score does not match what they want. Whereas if your step 1 is obliterated, you have so many other aspects that they will watch. So they have to go through every application and see whether you have managed to do what they really want. So Step 1 will not be used as a filter. Step 2, however, can be used as a filter because they will need at least something to be, considered a filter, because there's so many applications they get that if they just obliterate the scores, then it will be very difficult for them to understand and find out that which student they should call. So step 2 scores will still be of importance as of next year. Step 1 is going to be obliterated. It will be a pass or fail. And like I mentioned in my presentation, please go through it again if you want to. What will be important for you will be your CK score, your rotations in the US, and letters of recommendations. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, we have, can I practice in India after residency in US?
Yes, you can. You can definitely practice if you're from an MCI recognized college or you have cleared the next exam. Then you can certainly practice in India because you have eligible license to practice here. And you can see if you want to get into a government job and if you are trying to say that your MD over there should be at par with MD here, then no country is recognizing any other country's MD degree and they're making you do their own thing. Similarly, India does not recognize MD from anywhere else. But having said that, a good number of students start their own practice. They go to a great corporate or big hospital, or they do their own thing. They get into jobs here and they are readily accepted over here without any problem.
Ma'am, we have the opposite question also. Like if a person is doing MD in India, can he go further and do residency in US?
Yes, of course he can. And maybe 10 to 15% of students definitely do that. If there is a reason why you want to move to the US. And if there are people who are even 15 years into practice here and they want to, travel and move to the US, maybe their kids are there, or maybe they find that the practice is boring here and they want to do something new and they want to learn. Some of them want to go for fellowships. So definitely people from India who want to move to the US, even after MD, they need to make use of their MD degree. They need to make use of what they have done in their MD to apply with a great CV. There are a good number of programs who are accepting students. In fact, you will be surprised. I have been associated so closely with interviews of some of my students last year and the year before that. And, whenever they are in a room where they are interviewing with people during the interview, they have, a common room where all the interviewees on that particular day, say 10 to 15 people, will be sitting together and they will be putting a camera and observing that what you're chatting and what you're doing. And when that is happening, most of my students come back telling me that we were probably the youngest in that whole program, and there were about people who are in the age of 35 to 40 years who are also interviewing with us for a residency. Because like I mentioned to you, Americans or people from all over the world who come here, they come post MD only, not Americans, but people of America, they come post MD. Sometimes they do a couple of MDs in the US, couple of research work in the US, and then they apply for residency. So definitely it is possible for you to apply post MD for your residency.
Ma'am, here with us, we have a professor from FMP department, and he says he's willing to give USMLE now. So is it possible?
Absolutely, it is possible. It's a little tricky. Again, people who are a little older and they need to, understand that what is the kind of work they can do there. So I do think they need guidance and counseling. Like I mentioned, my email ID is there. Prasanna can also share my number so that you can have a call with me where I can on a one-on-one basis give you a better information or idea as to how you can apply and what are the opportunities for you after a certain number of years you have already put in India. What would actually be beneficial for you in the US? It is possible. Like I said, there is no age bar, and there are people who are ready to accept people who are a little more experienced. But how you need to do that is a little tricky, and you need some advice and guidance on the same, which I would definitely be willing to help.
Ma'am, he also asked that there's no age limit to this, right? Because he's 35 years old.
Absolutely not. My oldest student was 50 plus, so there is no age limit.
Ma'am, next question is, how many months prior to should we apply for electives?
Yeah, that's a good question. It depends on your time of application. If you don't have your step 1 score, then at least 6 to 8 months prior, depending on the kind of, how much like there is a lot of rush during certain months. So 6 to 8 months is what is a good time for starting your elective application.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, next one is, can you throw some light on the expenses like exam fees, travel expenses for the state?
Certainly. The good part of the pandemic, maybe it's very odd to hear this, but the pandemic has had so many bad things, but probably the only good part that I can talk about is that the expense for the USMLE has come down drastically because the CS exam has been removed. Travel to the US has stopped. Most of the things are online. So a good part of the expenses has come down because of the pandemic, because last year we had a good number of students who were sitting in India till they got matched into a residency, and they just traveled first time to the US when they got a residency. So this was never a case in the last 25 years. I have never heard anyone sitting in India and matching into a residency. So this has happened because of the pandemic, and that also has considerably reduced the cost, because initially it would be 15 to 20 lakhs minimum for rotations, going to the US and the applications. Now it is I would say about 10 to 12 lakhs is your minimum. It could be anywhere more than that depending on what rotations you get. But it is so competitive now, the rotations online, offline, the observerships and so many things have come their way that it is not as expensive as it used to be in the past. So I would say anywhere between 10 to 12 lakhs right from the day you start your preparation for USMLE until you get into a residence.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, next question we have is, how competitive is dermatology as a specialty for IMG?
It's pretty competitive. I think I can share a link on this particular, YouTube, where I have given a complete list of which are the programs that have very easily you can match and which are the programs which are really tough. Derma, last year, there was not even a single IMG who has managed to match. The year before that, there was one. So if you just go through there is PRIDA, there is, nrmp.org is the website. You can go there. You can have a list at what are the programs that IMGs are matching into, and you will get the list yourself. Derma is extremely competitive because the number of seats are less, and because but on the other hand, there are people who can do something called cosmetology, or these are aesthetic medicine. This is done even if you finish internal or family medicine. You can get into aesthetic as a fellowship and then practice the cosmetic part of dermatology, not the original dermatology. So there are people who really needed derma. They did family medicine or internal medicine and went into aesthetic medicine. But derma per se is very, very tough to get in.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, next is, how does one register VSLO individually?
Well, that's a process which you need to probably speak. I cannot waste time for everyone else on this forum for the same. You would need to get in touch with me individually for the same, and I'll let you know how you can do that.
Okay. Ma'am, next is, how do we get our observership in US?
You have to apply. You have to keep your eyes and ears open. If you have friends, relatives, or anyone who is working in the US, you can certainly take their help for the same. If not, you can connect with us, and we will also connect you to people who are giving observerships in the US. There are many private organizations that help you with the same. I myself have a long list of places like, say, Cleveland Clinic give, and Mayo, and there are so many other places that give observerships. But how to apply, when to apply, you need guidance for the same. And I can be helping you with this thing.
Yeah. Ma'am, comparison between USMLE and FLAG, considering the difficulty level.
Not a good question, because I don't know what is difficult for you. As far as theory or writing, see, it depends. The exams are all, I always used to think lab is an easier exam to clear because it is a pass and fail right from the first day. USMLE was more competitive. It had more subjects to study, because USMLE has right from first year until your third year, whereas lab is more clinical based and it has lesser number of subjects. But that is my opinion. Again, this is not something I can openly say that USMLE is easier or tougher than lab. So I don't think this question is valid also. I think whichever exam you have to give, you have to think that that is the exam which is easier for you, and you should apply with the same spirit rather than compare which exam is easier and then give that exam. I think this question should not be definitely answered by me, because how will I be able to tell which one is easier, frankly?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, here we have a detailed question. How many years are the scores valid for? Can I take step 1 in 2022 and step 2 into 2024, like after 2 years, and then submit my final application by 2025?
Yes, of course you can do that. Scores are valid for 7 years. And if you give your step 3 within those 7 years, then your scores are valid for life. So you just need to give your step 3 within 7 years of your step 1 and step 2. So think of the 7-year thing. After your first step, within 7 years, you should be done with your step 3 or your residency application. Okay? Otherwise, your scores are invalid.
Ma'am, next is, you have already shared information about research papers, but can you tell us that is it required that the research paper is always aligned to the subject you are applying for?
Preferably, no, because if you have worked on the subject, you will have a lot of, see, whenever you work on a medical research, you will do a lot of clinical work alongside, okay? If you take neurology, for example, you work with the neurology patients when you do the research. So you know about the subject, you go quite deep, so deeply into that subject that you are already on the research level. So when you are able to talk about it, I'm telling you, there are many people who say, for example, take research in another field and they want to apply in another field. They suddenly realize the field that they're doing research is more interesting for them and they switch over. Because when you do some detailed work on a particular field, either you end up liking that field so much or you don't like it and you want to shift your research altogether. So please align yourself to the field in every possible way so that they cannot find out anything wrong in your application. If you're a radio person and you're going on immunology research you're doing, there is no connection at all. And you're saying, I'm interested in research, so I went and did immunology research. It doesn't matter. They want to know, when there are so many research available in radio, in neuro, why you want to go and do some biochemistry research or immunology research? In no way connected. Okay, so try to do it in the subject that you want to apply.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, next is, can you tell us, can you guide us on how our CV should be? Which year should we start? And especially about some extracurricular activities.
So I think I have mentioned all of that on my presentation today, that which year what. I in fact made a chart in which first year what you should do, second what you should do. Extracurricular is based on your ability to do something. Like I just mentioned, some people are good at debating, dancing, swimming, badminton, whatever you are good at, you can pursue that activity. You may not be a winner, but participate in all activities in your medical school. There are so many events that keep happening. Be a part of that event wholeheartedly so that you develop yourself overall rather than just academically. Please go through this presentation again. There's a 20-minute presentation I've had just before this question answer session, where in detail I have told you from first year to final year what are the different aspects that you need to work on to improve your CV.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, next one is, what is better, giving CK in internship and going for electives after that while doing extended internship in college, or going for electives in the internship?
And this is very personal, depends on your preparation. If you have done your step 1 recently, you're fresh with your step 1, then quickly studying for CK and giving it within 6 months of your step 1 is very ideal. But if you feel you've given your step 1 way back in 3rd year, and you have a good amount of time to study for your CK, then it is important that you first take care of your elective work, because that can be done only during your internship. CK can be taken even after you finish your internship. So finish off your electives during your internship. That is very, very prime. And then you can work on your CK.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, we are done with the questions. Now Prasanna will take over.
All right. Yes, Prasanna.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So I would just like to, before I sign out, I would like to thank you, Prasanna, for being persistent and, taking so many people together. You have helped a lot of students here to get a perspective and understand exactly how to go about it. And you also gave me an opportunity to interact with very good students. And Shruti, very good way you have asked the questions. And I also think that the students who have participated have literally heard everything well and asked me very pertinent questions. So I'm really happy that I was a part of this webinar. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am, for giving us the opportunity. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone, and all the best. Please get in touch with me for anything, usmle@damsdelhi.com. Okay, thank you. All the best.